I asked Bryan to go through how he produced one of these songs, and he says the first thing he's going to have to do is load in some data. And what were you saying about that, Bryan?
Well, I'm loading in some data that I had originally stored to the data section of the ADATs, which is like a 2-minute space of tape before any actual audio comes in on the ADATs.
Mm-hmm.
And what's
stored on there? Actually,
what it's storing is all your locate points,
mm-hmm.
all your start times of the songs, your tempo maps, and just any kind of pitch changes.
Anything, the whole setup on the BRC.
The whole setup.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's.
So what I'm going to do, load from tape. Press play. Here we go.
And this is actually on this tape that you have there?
Yeah.
It's the same tape that has the mixes on it?
Yeah, I always store all the information on all the tapes.
You sound like a pretty organized guy, Bryan.
Yeah.
You have anything?
We're proud of him. We're really proud of him.
I'm also a nice young man.
He is a nice.
Okay, we've got the data loaded in now. And go back to the song name. I can zero in on that.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get this on here.
You have a glare on it or anything?
I've got it now. This is called What I Got. Okay, and what's this 1-01? What's all that about?
Now I have this now up here on the display type. You have either bars and beats, SMPTE, or just real time.
Mm-hmm.
Now at real time, the song starts at 10:30.
Ah, I see.
10 minutes 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now that's just where I randomly selected the song to start.
Mm-hmm.
Now over at bar, so that's going to put me at bar 1.
I see.
Right at where I started is bar 1.
Mm-hmm.
And
I see bar 1, beat 1. Is that what that means?
Yeah, bar 1, beat 1.
Okay.
So over in the locate points, the intro of the song, obviously after the 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's 2 bars of a count.
2 bars of a count, and then the intro. And then riff 1, when the band kicks in, starts at bar 7. Verse 1, bar 11. Pre-chorus 19, and so on.
So you mark all these locate spots
so I have all
for this
these
particular song.
Locate points done ahead of time. So when it comes to offsetting, what I would
Bryan,
do...
now it's got how many locate points? 20 or something?
It has 20.
Does that ever seem to be a problem?
Sometimes, but normally, on the average, you're going to go to about 15 or 16 locate
I see.
points.
Okay.
So, you want to do the offset thing?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then.
Okay. Now the way I do the offsetting, as far as like laying in vocals to a chorus or even guitar parts, I mean, I'll track take a lot of time tracking like a verse guitar part really well, knowing that I can just send it around to the rest of the song.
Okay, let's explain that a little bit because this people might not understand this. So what you're saying is if the first verse is just musically the same as the second verse,
Mm-hmm.
you'll do record the guitar on the first verse, and then you don't need to re-record it on the second verse. You'll just send it down to the second verse by bouncing it or whatever.
What's cool about it is knowing that I can do that with any instrument. It allows you to take more time on the part and make it that much better because you don't have to be doing it through the whole song.
Yeah, good point.
It's exactly the same.
Uh-huh.
I mean, of course, if it varies a little, you're going to go in. And a lot of times, even if it does vary a little, I'll punch it into the second verse and then just punch into the changes.
Yeah, right, sure.
So you have to track the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
So, but the way to do that is there's a tape offset, and of course you have to have more than one tape to do this.
Yeah, I guess what I'm kind of worried about now is, let's say if your guitar's on track number 3, and how are you going to send it to track 3 later in the song? You have to temporarily send it to another track?
What you'd have to do is temporarily send it to an open track on the second tape.
Yeah, right.
Because
the tapes are going to be offset.
You use that, and what I normally do with that is I have one tape that I just use as a work tape.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just stick that in, and I can just use it to record anything. It's just a work tape.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm moving a guitar from verse 1 to verse 2, I'll digitally send the guitar from verse 1 onto the second tape.
Okay, let's say you're going to set up for that to do that on the BRC. Let's say the guitar is on track 3, and you got your work tape in the second 8-at machine. So how are you going to? You just arbitrarily send it to 9 or something?
Yeah. What you do is come over here into this edit mode and come to digital.
Okay, we're going to digital I/O. It says. Mm-hmm.
And what you want to do is select the tracks to send. Any of these tracks that you punch in here are the ones you're sending somewhere. These are your source tracks. So if I was sending track 3, I'd punch in track 3.
Okay.
Come back over here, come out of edit mode, push digital in and out, so it's digitally routing from 1 and 2, from tapes, machines 1 and 2. And whichever track I select, it'll send it to that one.
Okay, so now we're out of this edit digital I/O page and back to the regular page on the BRC, and now you're just arming whatever track you want to send it to.
Yeah, and if you wanted to send that to all these tracks, it'll send it to all of them.
Oh, really?
Whichever one you want to do. You know,
Okay.
For some reason you wanted to do that. But for now, we'll send it to 16.
Okay.
So we're sending 3 to 16.
Cool.
So that we can offset this back to 3. You know, what we're trying to do is send verse 1 guitar to verse 2. So we'd send that.
Okay, now we need to offset the machines. So how do you do that?
Offsetting, come into edit mode again, tape offset.
Okay,
Now-
whenever you hit edit, you got to select whatever it is you want to edit after that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let me see if I can.
So
focus
we
on
have
this.
we have 2 selections here. Counter offset, which is just real time counter.
Hold on just a second. Tape, continue with what you were saying
Okay.
about offsetting.
Now in offset we have 2 different selections: counter offset and locate offset.
Ah.
Now since I have my locate point stored in bars and beats,
Mm-hmm.
I use a locate offset
Okay, good.
parameter. So what I want to do here is scroll up again. Tape offset. Now we have offset tape 1. What I'm trying to do is offset tape 2
Mm-hmm.
from a certain point to another one. So I offset tape 2 from locate point, and you hold
Mhm.
name, and you can scroll through. So I'm trying to send from verse 1,
Oh.
or actually I'm offsetting tape 2 from verse 2
Mm-hmm.
to verse 1, because I want the guitar from tape 2 to play. I want the guitar in verse 1 to play at verse 2, at tape 2. So I'm offsetting tape 2 from verse 2 to be playing at verse 1 while verse 2 is going. So, and then you just, as soon as you dial that in,
The machines will
tape
start.
offset, and the machines will do it. You know, which I don't have 2 tapes in there now.
Okay, his second 8-app machine. Maybe we'll do a little some of this at the class also, so they can kind of. I can make sure that I'm getting a good picture on this display.
Yeah, 'cause there's.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
So as soon as you have this offset done,
Mm-hmm.
what we want to do now is take the guitar that we had put on 16
Uh-huh.
to offset.
Okay, now you put it back in there.
Now I assign 16 to go back to 3,
Mm-hmm.
which is our original guitar track.
But you take the offset off to do this.
No, you leave it on. You leave the offset on because you want tape 2 to be reversed at verse 1, while tape 1 is at verse 2.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
So what we're going to do is send 16 back to 3. So just send and engage 3, and we're sending the guitar to verse 2 now.
And what's kind of nice about this bouncing around stuff, it all exists in the digital domain, so there's no degradation of the signal or anything like that.
And so if you've tracked the song beyond, like if you've tracked the song up to verse 2 and there's something you don't want to erase, having these everything coded in bars and beats allows you to auto punch in on exactly at verse 2, and then like out at exactly pre-chorus 2. So
And then you can actually rehearse that too to hear it first.
you can also rehearse that if you'd like to. You just press rehearse and do like you're just going to record it, and it'll just rehearse it.
Mm-hmm. And
So-
sometimes, if it's possible, maybe you had some guitar that extended a little bit longer after that. You maybe adjust your punch in or punch out points to make it jive better.
Right.
Yeah, you don't necessarily punch in right at the beginning of the section.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times it'll cut off the attack a little
Mhm.
bit, but also it keeps anything from being ahead of the beat.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
especially with bass tracks, it's great because the bass will never come in early with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so but of course a lot of times you'll cut off the attack of it. But you know that just depends on the playing. But another point about what we were saying, not moving tape 1 around will cause your bars and beats to always stay.
That's
Correct.
correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it might
if you're
confuse
toggling
you.
tape 1,
Mm-hmm.
then it goes off.
Yeah.
It'll still be on beat, but
Mhm.
you won't be at the right bar.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know.
it might confuse you or something.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about this business of when you're first starting out and you got the drum tracks created. So you start the project by the tape machine's not running at all. You just start programming some drums over here, right?
Okay.
And you said that this thing I talked to you on the telephone. You said when you're programming, you actually just use the internal sounds of the HR16B, even those they may not be the final sounds.
No, I use the D4.
Oh, for sounds. That's right, D4.
Program.
Yeah. So you, MIDI out of this thing sends to the D4, and you're in business.
Yeah.
Is that actually up and happening right now? If you were to power it up, where are your 4 outs of this? Do they come up somewhere on the patch bay?
Yeah, they're over here on the patch bay.
And so you just patch whatever you need to individual track or something. Do you have any program in this drum machine right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
And
we could be surprised by something, but I doubt it.
what you do is, I guess you use the data disk to recall up some data if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I store anything I program. I store into the data disk, either coming off of the HR16 or the MT8.
So if you needed to call up some of the CJ's stuff, you could do it? You have it saved on data disk?
Some programs. Yeah, but then I'd also have to load in the kits, the actual kits. Which
do you store the kit information on data disk also?
Yeah, you can store the kits.
Right.
Which normally, I mean, any of the kits that I've used, like on the Fear of Silence stuff, or anything really that I do, is never just out of the D4. So I mean, it all has to be put together with the S1000 and everything.
Okay, we're rolling. Okay, so you create some drum programs in this drum machine, and then once you have the whole song done, do you go ahead and program all the verses and choruses and all that stuff? You don't say take a verse and let that be the same for the second verse and all that stuff?
I normally program different parts for everything.
Just to make it sound more
just
realistic.
To make it a little more realistic.
Yeah.
Sometimes of course, if it's just a real simple part, just send it to
and you want it to be the same, maybe the kick pattern or something like that. All right, now once you've got the drum tracks the way you want them, what's the next thing you do? Get out a blank BRC tape? I mean, a ADAT tape?
Well, the next thing is to go over here in the BRC and set up a tempo map.
Okay.
So, and like what we did with this song, is I started the song, and wherever you start the song from is where, any sequence is going to start from exactly. Whatever
and you set that as song start or something up there?
Yeah, just in locate song.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you want it to start at, and that's going to put you at bar 1, beat 1. So, and then we come over here to tempo map. Bar 1, this song's at 119.
So y'all just arbitrarily decided that was a good tempo for the tune, huh?
Yeah.
So
and this song doesn't have any. I didn't manipulate any tempo map in here.
But
so,
it's go ahead and talk about how you use the tempo mapping stuff.
The way what I use the tempo map for is to, like in licks of songs when I'm programming, so really I don't mess with it here. I'll just know that I want to do that later.
What do you mean by that? Licks of songs and knowing you're going to want to do it later.
If I'm programming and I know that there's a lick that comes up and I need it to either slow down or speed up.
Why do you want it to slow down or speed up?
Well, just to have more of a realistic feel.
You were telling me earlier that a certain type of a lick, you may want it to slow down.
Right.
Or in certain other licks, you want it to speed up.
Yeah. So it just depends on the lick. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with just drumming, and I have a good feel for drums.
How did you?
I don't know.
Just by trial and error, messing with it, or?
I mean, I don't really play on a kit, but I'm just aware of drum parts and things. So I mean, I always wanted to play drums as a kid before guitar, but so I'm kind of aware of what kind of licks need to speed up some to sound more realistic, and which ones need to fall back. And of course they're not in the extreme. I mean, if anything, on a lick you would move it like maybe 2, BPM.
Like this 119. So if you want a certain snare lick to speed up, you'd go to 121. But do you
Probably
do
not
that for the
much
whole
on a lick
bar?
like that.
For the whole.
Just do it for however long the lick is.
Say at the end of the measure, snare goes ta 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 ta.
Yeah, you just do it for 2 bars.
2 beats.
2 beats. Excuse me. Yeah.
And you can control. You can say at beat 3 of the measure you want it to.
Here's a good point. You can only control the bars, which is kind of a silly thing on this.
You can't break it down to beats.
You can't break it down to beats. So what you have to do is set the tempo twice, double the tempo. So it's. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that allows you a lot more power within doing that kind of stuff.
Do you need to worry about that when you program the machine? So when you start, I mean, let's say on this song, if you needed to do that, if the machine is programmed at 119, won't that mess it all up? You double it up, and now won't it play at double speed or not?
Well,
really?
You'll have to, yeah.
So when
you have to set your click, to align with that.
So let's say what you're saying in this song here, it's set at 119. You'd have to reprogram the drums, or just set a couple of parameters in the HR16 to make it work.
Yeah, you can just fix it in there.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have to. I normally don't have to mess with that too much, because most of the time licks don't. There's very few times that I even use that. But when I know that I'm going to be doing that, I'll know when I'm programming to do it ahead of time.
I see.
And I don't know why. I mean, it seemed like it would have been a simple function for them to allow you to control the beats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, because licks don't always last for a whole bar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just seemed kind of silly. So.
All right. So.
Once you've set up the tempo map, all you do is, you need to come over here in this generate sync mode.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're trying to sync this to a drum machine or a sequencer or whatever you're trying to do. What you want to do is come into edit as usual, and you have SMPTE, MIDI clock.
You decide what kind of sync you want to use.
So you either have SMPTE, your selections for SMPTE, or your MIDI, which is clock and MIDI time code.
Okay.
I always use clock. It's a little more powerful. And all you do is turn this on, MIDI out,
Mm-hmm.
the BRC,
MIDI out of the BRC.
into the drum machine. And as soon as it hits 10:30, which is where this song starts, the drum machine will start playing at the tempo you've selected in the tempo map on the BRC.
Uh-huh. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what they do in this room here. You see, they've got a patch bay. Now, what's the deal on this patch bay? Did you have to kind of make this? This didn't come with a console, did it?
No.
So did you wire it yourself?
Yeah. It's just all 1/4 inch.
Uh-huh. And I mean, you really did it yourself? You didn't get somebody out here to help you?
No.
And CJ didn't help?
No, hell no.
Hell no.
Jimmy, did you help?
I just built the wall.
Ah.
Jimmy built the wall.
Did he paint it?
I think they painted it.
Okay.
I'll do some.
Let's walk in the next room and see what's going on in here. You want to? We're going into the little entryway here. He's got a bunch of guitars, a piano out here. And now to go to the tracking room, we have to go around this way?
No, we can go right there.
Ah.
Yeah,
Which is really just
using the restroom there.
for amps. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. This is y'all's lunch, white rice here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you actually cruise through this carpet thing.
Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit. See, this is your high-tech door you got here.
Yeah.
All right.
And so
That actually blocks the heat pretty well.
yeah, it
doesn't
does.
And so you set up an amp out here. I see you got one.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's Michael's JC120.
Oh,
uh,
I didn't know
We-
Mike
we-
had one of those.
Yeah, we use that to track some of the clean stuff on the FOS stuff. There's an old Gretsch amp that I heisted from somewhere. And
This looks like a cute little amp.
and we,
Set that on top of here so we can get a picture of that. That looks real nice. Looks like a little radio or something.
Yeah, it's real old. It's an old tube job. It sounds real nasty, but when you're using experimental stuff, I mean, you can do all kinds
Mhm.
of crazy stuff.
Are these speakers hooked up in case you want to hear a mix on these or something?
We can say they are. But
So you got some nice pictures on the wall here.
So then he'll oh yeah, real nice.
What do you use the vacuum cleaner for? There's some of the sounds we heard in your recording.
Yeah, exactly. That would be, just really anything. What exactly
Yeah,
is
this
the
is just-
vacuum cleaner on?
Do what?
What tunes did you use the vacuum cleaner on?
Well, a little bit of that fuzz and that guitar tone.
Yeah.
Sample.
Now, where did y'all get this box here? I think this box actually belongs to me, doesn't it?
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Steve thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man, Steve just got nailed. No.
Go ahead and say that. Okay, now when you're cutting vocals, is the vocalist actually out here?
Oh, fuck no.
No, there's no way in hell. Actually, sometimes they track in the room that the piano was in.
Uh-huh. Where did you track, CJ?
I tracked in the actual control room.
And you both wore headphones?
Yes, we did.
Uh-huh.
I don't wear any headphones.
Because he can't stand the sound of my voice. But normally he would.
I didn't wear any I mean, I just monitor down, and I'm just listening to the vocalist, and I just listen back to the tracks when we play it back.
And do you just turn the monitors way down?
It's all the way off, yeah.
Off.
Yes.
And you can just maybe hear a little bleed in the phones. You know where you are.
No.
No.
Not really.
Well, how do you know where to punch?
I program it all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You pre-program all the punch in and outs.
Yeah.
So when you're doing vocals and you're trying to get these real tight stacks, is it typical that you would punch in right in the middle of a line?
Oh, yeah, on a word.
But you always pre-program that.
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
I never do any live punches.
Really?
Yeah.
You've just gotten fast enough at it to where you can pre-program?
Yeah.
Well, you might show us.
I mean, sometimes, but
hardly ever. And do you ever need to rehearse them before you program, or don't do that?
no, not unless we're trying to. Well, yeah, sometimes. So as not to cut off a word or
In the class, maybe you can show exactly how that works. It seemed like that's pretty useful.
I mean,
Yeah.
but typically, I mean, there's places where you can and can't punch like anything else. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to get through a whole phrase, and it's kind of hard to punch in the middle of it because of the way that it's going and the
Mhm.
breath or anything.
Sure.
You want to break it up.
You can. I mean, with those things, you can punch in on any damn thing.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to punch in that at the end of a line, that's something that comes up way at the end of a long line, and you're starting to sing at the middle of the line, your breath and your tone is going to be completely different by the time that punch comes around. So the punch point isn't going to sound right, even if the punch point themselves are just perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still not going to sound right.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Do you ever use the any kind of distant miking in this room? Does it work?
I have before
But
for
it's just-
guitars,
Uh-huh.
but
It doesn't really sound.
I don't really like that sound. I mean, I like real dry shit all the time.
Mhm.
Normally. But I've used it before, and it sounded okay, but
Mhm. Nothing.
I mean, I don't really track. The only stuff I track in here are guitars and sometimes bass, but I have all the mics so close, and a lot of times I put an enclosure around it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
most of the time I track singers in here, you know.
So you got a little window here that you can look there into the control room.
On more intense things, I normally have the singer in the control room with me.
You can just communicate better with them.
Yeah, you know, I don't like talking through glass or through
Yeah.
headphones and things like that.
Yeah.
So I normally have the singer just standing right next to me or something.
And most of the time when you're doing a vocal track, is it almost most of the time that you're just running one 8-at tape, so you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
syncing two of them up, and you
I try
rewind
to
real quickly
composite, Yeah.
Yeah.
and get ready to punch and go back again. I guess one of the things that helps get tight stacks is if you can very quickly hear what you did, rewind, record, rather
Right.
than having 10 seconds elapse in
Yeah.
between.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and another reason that we're in there and stuff is because he's when he's doing vocal production, he really has a better idea being in the same room if you're on or if you're off, and he can tell you without having to listen back a lot of times. We're just going to have to retake this.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're double tracking a lot of vocals, you need to save that kind of time because I mean it's already a long venture to begin with. But I mean if you listen back to every take just to see if you nailed it or not,
Mhm.
I mean you'd be here days and days on.
Well, you know, it seems to me that it'd be hard for Bryan to make a decision that you had nailed it if he's not really listening to the previous track.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, I always listen back to the track to hear it, but
Sometimes you can just
But,
tell.
Yeah, sometimes you can tell that it's just not on.
Yeah.
You know, and especially sitting in the room with you, especially when you're doing a line and you're doing it many times,
Uh-huh.
you get an idea what's on and what's off. And so then if you think you're going to keep it, well, then you listen back.
Bryan, I may be missing something here, but it seems to me that if you were actually hearing the previous voice while you were tracking, it would save a step to rewinding and checking and say, well, that sounded like it might have worked. Let's hear it.
right. Well,
So
yeah.
if you were hearing
Well,
it, you'd say, hey, that worked. Let's go to the
more
next
than
one.
judging takes. I mean, that's not really what the point is. It's just have the communication
Yeah.
in the other room.
Yeah, I guess
But
it's so
judging
powerful on the communication thing. It's just,
Yeah.
I
a big
always
deal.
listen back to double tracks without music anyway.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
CJ, what do
So
you
slow
listen
it out, it
to?
doesn't
What do you
lie.
like to listen to in the phones when you're cutting these vocals? The whole mix or any specific instruments?
Usually it's the whole mix is what we were
just
running.
everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Besides embellish, you know, just main rhythms.
So yeah, but
bass.
mainly what we jack with is just the level of what I'm getting at of what the vocal that I'm taking, the level that I'm getting of that in the phone is sometimes what we mess with. Sometimes I want a little less and more of the previous track, or not that much of the previous track and more
More
of what I'm
live.
cutting, and then sometimes we cut it without the previous track at all, just like it's the first track. And sometimes you can nail them better like that for some reason. It works.
Yeah, that's the way. That's the way I try to get people to do it, because
Jimmy's better at that stuff than I am. I usually like to have the previous track in my phone.
Okay. When you're doing vocal tracks, you just sit there at the board and set up a mic and put on some phones.
Sometimes I'll have phones on also.
It seems like that if you're doing your own vocals.
Oh, my own vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just stand right in front of the board, and what's cool about that, I mean, I've tracked entire songs by myself, just engineered it by myself, and even gone out in the other room and done feedback tracks by myself with no one engineering.
By running around the way and
by just programming the punch in and out. You know what I mean?
And run over here and do it.
And I just set enough roll time to where I can just walk in there, get feedback in front of the amp, stand there and do it, and I have the phones in there. Everything punches in where I need it to and stops. I have the auto start. If I need to do it a few times, it has the loop where it starts and ends. So I can just stand in there and just do shit all night with no one in here.
And then once you've got it right, you run in there and hit stop or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Okay, let's walk into this room now. I asked y'all earlier about any kind of mic preamps or something. You said that if you were doing some critical vocals, you borrow the one from Studio M, this Focusrite.
Yeah, we did on the Fear of Silence stuff.
Now, do you a lot of times though just cut vocals right through the CAD?
Oh yeah. Like all the stuff on the Union stuff that you were hearing, straight through. No mic preamp.
Yeah.
At all.
Got a storage cabinet over here, a bunch of cassettes. Where do you store all the ADATs? It seemed like you would have a million of them.
They're in all those drawers there.
All right. Well, so you see here that Bryan has a very nothing too fancy a setup out here, but he's able to use it to get some really good professional sounds and use all this gear to its fullest potential. You guys got any little parting statements you want to say? Jimmy's got a banana. Did you bring us one, Jimmy?
You can have part of mine.
That's okay.
Whichever.
One thing I would say is that the reason most people come out here, and it's not because of tones or good songs or any of that crap, it's because of this drawer right here.
It's our great selection of mags.
It's this drawer right here.
A fabulous
we better not
board
look
That's
in
a
there.
serious collection
Exactly.
there.
I mean, when you're spending many
No one
hours in
gives
the
a damn
studio,
about all
you
that studio
realize how
stuff.
important that is. I feel like I know some of those women.
Say bye-bye.